Okay, hey guys. So today I was going to make a video on my Triloom, kind of a sort of tutorial. Well, basically yes, I'm gonna try my hand at a tutorial. So I have a Hideaway loom, and this is the stand words that go with it, and this is from Rogers Looms. And it's awesome. So it's a 7-foot adjustable Triloom, and it does from 7 feet to 5 feet. Right now it's on the 5.5-foot setting. So, and what I'm going to do is the cut strand method, and I haven't seen a lot of videos on this, so I thought I would, give it a shot and, see if I can make a tutorial. I'm not promising it'll be good, but, one of the problems I have seen is that videos are either too far away to see what's going on, or they're too close up to see both ends of the triangle. So I'm going to try to do a little bit farther away and then kind of move the camera in and show you what it looks like a little closer. And if you see or hear the animals in the background, just don't mind them. They're just extras, I guess. So let me just go over, I guess, a couple of things that I would suggest you need, or things that I've done to my Triloom. First of all, you don't have to have a easel, okay? But really, I did not start using my loom very much until I got one, because it's so large that when you put it on the wall, you either have to have it so high up or so low down that it's just uncomfortable to use. So with my easel, I can adjust it to where I want to be, either standing or sitting, and I can weave. And I can also turn it a bunch of different ways. Oh, well, that's gonna happen. Sorry about that. That was the cat. He's a little nosy. But I can also turn it a bunch of different ways to just adjust it so that it's easier for me to use. The other thing I did was, you see these black Velcro straps back here. I have a little basket hanging on the back, and really I don't use it as much as I thought I would. I just have some yarn in there right now, but I do sometimes put some crochet hooks in there, and then I put these in there a lot of times as well. These are just binder clips. These you don't have to have them, but they are really useful, because in the cut strand method, you weave from one end to the other, and down here, these ends will hang until you're ready to tie them. And you can have two ends, and when they're loose down here, it sometimes makes it difficult to weave. So what I do is I'll use this to kind of hold the yarn so it holds it tight, and it makes it easier for me to weave till I get down here to tie it up. I also sometimes use these when I'm taking my shawl off the loom, and what I'll do is, as I'm going across the top of my crochet hook, just like a pot holder where you and pull one over, I'll put this a couple of pegs ahead, just so I don't lose the shawl off the pegs before I'm ready, which has happened to me before. It's not a disaster, but it just is something to make it a little easier. And a lot of times when I'm not using these, I'll just kind of clip it on the loom instead of putting it in the basket. The only other thing that I have done to this loom is I have added a command hook down here, and you'll probably see it a little bit easier when I come closer. I've added a command hook, just one of the removable ones, that I hang my pair of scissors on. This is probably the most useful thing that I've done, just because you need your scissors and you keep laying them down and it takes forever to find them. So that's the basics of the stuff that you need to go with it. Now, I do have a comb somewhere. I don't know where I've put it at the moment, but I just have a black wide tooth comb that I use sometimes to align the threads as I'm getting farther along. Usually you don't need it in the first part. You can do it with your fingers, or it just kind of aligns up itself. Oh, it's on the floor. I'm sure the cat knocked it on the floor, but this is just what it is. It's just a Conair. I stole it from my husband, so And I broke one of the, but let me tell you, so you can get these at the dollar store or something similar, but I would suggest just go ahead and get you a slightly better one that's a little bit more sturdy, because when you're weaving with several strands and it gets super tight, sometimes the dollar store ones don't have enough strength to they're not rigid enough. So there's that. And a lot of times, again, I don't use the basket. I'll just kind of sit it on top of the loom like that. Okay? So the first thing that you do with cut strand method is you'll take some yarn. I'm going to use black and I'm basically using scraps, but what I'm going to do is use black and then stripe it in with my scraps. So you're going to measure, and with cut strand you automatically have fringe, so that saves a step. But you're going to measure from the top peg of where you're starting. I know it's a little bit hard to see, but I'll do it again closer up. But you measure from the top down to the bottom peg, and you just kind of want to leave yourself enough. Don't stretch the yarn super, but just kind of leave yourself enough to have some fringe and be able to tie it the way you want to. So, you know, you can just experiment with it. I always leave too much and end up cutting off a lot, but it's not a big deal. So then I cut it, and when I'm using scraps like this, these are just like, this is not necessarily Red Heart, but it's something similar to just a Red Heart Super Saver. So they're just scraps. I don't really know exactly what they are. I will use 2 strands for each like weaving, I guess. I guess I should disclaimer this. I am not a weaver, I guess you would say. This is the only loom I have. I don't have like a rigid heddle or anything like that. So the terms like the warp and the weft, I won't be using those, because that's just not, because you basically do all of it in one step with this kind of loom anyway. But I'll just be using Jennifer terms, because that's all I know how to use. So because I'm using 2 strands per downward thing, I'll actually need 4 to start, because you're going to tie them in little groups. So you're weaving in groups of 2 and in groups of 4, and that'll become a little bit easier to explain once I get you a little closer. So what I usually do is I go ahead and I get my 4, and then if I don't have any other scraps sitting around that are already pre-measured, I'll measure a 5th, just because it's easier to go off of the yarn I already have cut than it is to measure it every time against the loom. It's always the same length all the way across, because this side, as this side gets longer, then that side gets shorter. So it's the same length all the way across. So now that I have 5 pieces, I will just take that 5th one off and I hang it on my loom. It may be a little hard to see because it's black, but when you get closer you'll be able to see. And then what I do, I'll come closer, is I just take, so I kind of figure my fringe this long. It really doesn't matter at first, because I always end up adjusting my fringe with the scissors at the end anyway. So I just tie a regular old knot in these, just like this, just like a regular knot. And then what I do, I will show you this closer because you're not going to be able to really see what I'm doing from all the way over here. I understand that. So I hook it on the top peg, and I use both my strands, and I go around the first 2 pegs on this side, okay? And sometimes it takes a few minutes to kind of figure out the way you want to do it. And then you basically turn them and go around the top 2 pegs on the other, like on the top part. So, okay, and it gets a little fiddly the first few rows because you don't have a lot of room to work with. So, as I'm saying, fiddly. But after you've got several rows, it's really super easy. So then you take your 2 strands, and what I have is well, they've already gotten tangled, so that's a good start, right? So I have them divided. I have 2 strands in each little section, and I'll take them down to the bottom, okay? And what you do then at the bottom is you tie them at the bottom, and then you start your next ones. So now that you kind of have that from the large part of the loom, I'm going to bring you closer so you can see this part of the loom, because this is where your weaving is going to start. And down at the bottom, all you're doing is tying knots. So I will bring you down there to see that, but that was not quite as important. So just hold on for me for a second, because I'm going to scooch you, and it may take a little adjusting because I'm not like a super videographer here. And you may have to be all up in my personals. So I'm going to try to get you close enough so you can actually see what I'm doing. Okay, hopefully you can see that. So that's about as close as I think I can get, really, without... I don't think my camera will zoom in anymore, really. No. So that's about as close as I can get. Maybe. I can maybe bring it down a little bit and tilt it. Sorry about jingling you around. Just trying to get you as close as possible because it's hard to see if you're so far away. Okay. That is as close as you're going to be able to get. And I will have to kind of move you around a little bit so that I can tie it down at the bottom, because right now the camera is right beside me. So like I said, you have your yarn with your knot, and you take it over here and you put it around this first. So what I do is there are pegs going from here all the way up because my loom is adjustable. And what I do is I don't start on this odd peg that's in the corner. You can, but to me it just gets a little confusing. So what I do is I use that peg at the end, and I guess this video will have to be in a couple parts because I can't really weave a whole shawl in like a few hours to be able to come back and show you. So when I come back I'll show you, but this peg right here I don't really use. So I come down to, we'll call it the second and the third peg, which are really the first. Let's see if I can get you super close. So I'm not using this peg right here. I'm using these two, the two that are directly across from each other, okay? So sit you back down. Hope I didn't give anybody any seasickness. So what I do is I put my yarn around those 2 pegs, okay? And then I take 1 strand. This is also a good place. I don't have my, well, now I can't get to it, but this is also a good place where sometimes I will put one of those clips right here to hold this tail out of the way and kind of hold the yarn in place for me so it's not quite as fiddly. But I put it around the first 2, okay? And then you're going to want to kind of twist it. So the one that's around this first peg, you're going to want to put it on the second peg, okay? And the one that's around the second peg, you want to come up and you want to put it on the first peg. Now, let me tell you a trick that I've learned, just not from anybody in particular, but just that saves me some grief. It's easiest to weave if you are going over on your first strand, okay? It doesn't make any difference that I've noticed in the finished product, but it's easier with the cut strand method if you are going over the first strand and under the second, so that you don't have to pick this strand up when it might not be tight. It's a little bit easier, okay? So just look at, you know, hold on, I gotta do some adjusting. Like I said, your first strands are always a little fiddly, and it's just the way it is. And half the time I'm like, did I do that right? Did I do this right? And you just kind of gotta fiddle with it. But I know you always have to do this little twisty motion, and it gets a little bit less awkward as you do it. So it may take you a few times to kind of get it twisted there. So then, okay, I'm gonna have to move you back, and you're just bear with me. You won't see what I'm doing this time because I can't move you that far back. But what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna go all the way down to the end, and I'm gonna tie at the end those 2 strands around that. We'll call it the, you're gonna see my big ear, I'm sorry. I did clean my ears. I'm gonna tie that around the 2nd and 3rd strand, and I do a double knot, not anything fancy. And you don't want to pull it super tight, but you also don't want it super loose. So just kind of enough where, you know, it's movable. You don't want to have it so tight where you're fighting with it the whole time, because that will happen. I did that. It's not fun. If it's a little loose, it's not as bad as being so tight you can't work with it. So there we go. So I'll bring you back in a little bit. So that's my first set. It's super easy. You just, you know, I've got, this is 2 pieces, and this is 2 pieces. Okay, and every weaving I do from now on, every nail will have 2 pieces of yarn. Unless for some reason I have some super thick yarn, but I'm not going to use any in this one. So what you do next is you'll just decide whether you want to continue with black or you want to go ahead and add in another color. So what I'm going to do, and I do it usually in these groups of four strands. So if I do another row, I actually do 2. I hope that's not confusing. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do another 2 rows of black, and I'm going to use my little strand that I already had, so it's easier to cut. And I'm just going to cut a couple more strands. So I'll actually cut 4 more because I want to keep one for the measuring sake. And that's just my preference. It's not anything you need to do. I could have had these pre-cut, because you can go through and pre-cut all your strands. It does make it a little bit faster. I have done that, but really I like to just, I don't know, I like to fly by the seat of my pants here. And you don't have to get all your strands, they don't have to be the exact same length, okay? So don't fret about it if they're not, because, you know, you're never going to get them all exactly the same. You're going to trim your ends anyway for your fringe. And I'll show you after I get these 2 rows done, these next 2 rows, what I usually do with my fringe. There's a lot of different ways you can do it, and I'm not any kind of expert. I've only made like 4 shawls so far. But I will show you what I do, okay? And if you do want to pre-cut your strands, what you can do is just cut them, and then you can line them up on your pegs. It just makes it easier. Okay, so now, because I've already got these 2 woven, I'm only dealing with 2 strands at a time. You don't have to do that 4 strands like I did for the first. That's just a setup thing. So what I do is I just set, I guess I could move these a little bit so you could see them. So I set my other 2 strands right here, because like I said, I usually work in sets of 2 when I do this. So here I go. So you're going to do just like you do the regular continuous strand weaving. You're going to do over and under. So the way I have mine set up, did I do that right? So I need to go, I didn't do it like I wanted to do it. It's okay, it's not a big deal. So I'm going to go under my first strand and over my second. Okay. Hold on. Let's pause a second because I think I did something wrong. Hold on. Okay, sorry guys. I don't know what I was thinking. Probably because I was on the camera and I wasn't thinking. So let me go back to what I said before. So on your first peg you weave, take the strand up to the first peg here. And on the second peg, take the strand up to the second peg. Okay? sorry about that. That's my fault. I knew it looked a little weird, but I didn't realize till I started weaving what I had done. So that crosses them right here, which starts your weaving. Okay, so now I'm on my second strand, and I'm gonna go. This is how I knew that something was wrong with set it up, because I did want to go over my first strand and under my second, and now I've got that where it'll do that. So I just hook it around that first peg and kind of pull and adjust so that my little fringes here at the top are kind of even. Just eyeball it. It's not a big thing. Okay, and then I'm gonna have to move you back. Okay, and let's take you down. I hope the camera may fall over. It's gonna be too low. Okay, so I'll walk you through verbally what I'm gonna do. I take it down to the bottom, the next peg, okay? So I used up the first 2 pegs for my first 2 lines. So I'm taking this one's gonna be on the third. And this is where the little binder clips will come in handy. So if you just draped it, it would be super loose. Just like, so it's just kind of hanging everywhere. So what I do, and you can end up pulling it too far. So what I do is I take it, hold it up here a little bit, come down here, and just kind of wrap it around the pegs a little bit, and take the binder clip and just clip it. And that will keep it, it'll make it more taut for you so that it's easier to work, okay? And you can still kind of see pretty good, I guess. I wish I could hold the camera in my hand, but you need both hands really for this. So the next step is I take my next strand, okay, and you're still doing the same over under thing just like you do the other the continuous strand, okay, and you hook it around the next peg, okay. And what I do now is I will go ahead and just tie these 2 together, okay, and that just basically locks in these strands, so they're not going to go anywhere, and I know I'm not going to pull them too far at the end. So I just basically knotted those, okay. We're going to move back again. It's a lot of back and forth. We're going to come down all the way to the bottom. Excuse me, I had the hiccups. We're going to come all the way down to the bottom, and I'm going to tie those 2 strands together at the bottom around the next 2. Okay, so now I've got 4 pegs taken up down at the bottom. And this usually doesn't take me as long to tie these down here at the bottom, but I'm at a weird angle because I don't want to knock you guys off the camera. So just give me 1 second. And boop. Okay, so I got those tied down at the bottom. Got these up here at the top. And sometimes, this just happened, so I will show you. Sometimes you're not. I am going to pick the camera up for just a second. Get you really close. Hopefully you can see that. Sometimes your knot right here will slip this way. See how it's up here now? And then it's not a big deal. Just pull it back this way. Okay? No problem. So then what I like to do with my friend, just if I'm doing different colors, is I will not, because I'm going to do in sections of 4, like 4 string rows at a time, I will go ahead and take these 2 and I will just knot them together, okay? And I just slip the knot as close, close to the top. It's not a big deal. But so now this is kind of stranded together, and it makes it easier just to flop it over or use those clips to kind of clip it up out of your way, because they will get in your way. Believe me, totally in your way. Okay, so the next color I'm going to pick red because it's a good big contrast color, so you can see it better. And this is just, like I said, a bucket of scraps that I've got from some yarn that I bought from an older lady who didn't want hers anymore. So I'm going to cut 4 strands again. And like I said, you could cut 8 because you will need 8 of total of this color. But I'm just going to go ahead and cut 4 so you can see what I'm doing. So it doesn't take so long basically. Yeah. I really enjoy these cut strand shawls more than I like the continuous strand. Now, I have only done like 2 continuous strand shawls, and I've really only done 4 cut strand, but I just like the way these drape a little better, and they also are not quite as difficult for me and my fingers at the end. Now, in a continuous strand, you work towards the middle, and that middle strand you get to is really tight a lot of times to weave it through. With the cut strand, you're weaving towards the end, so you're weaving towards your opposite end. And just for some reason, it could be the way I weave or whatever, it just is not as hard for me to weave at that end as it is to the middle. It could just be me, I don't know. So, like I said, it's just however you like. So, I hook my strand. Those are my extra 2 for right now. I'll take my red ones, put them around the next peg, okay? Do the over-under thing, and you can use a crochet hook for this. I just use my fingers a lot of times, just, you know, it's easier for me. And sometimes I will go down here and do the clip. Sometimes I just kind of let it rest, because when you're doing over-under, like when you start with the over, it's not as hard to weave multiple strands and then finish the weaving towards the bottom. I hope that makes sense. So I can take my next strand. This one's not attached to anything down there at the bottom, but because I'm doing over-under, I can basically leave this one alone as long as I'm going over it. So I go over-under, take it up, and just do like this, okay? And then I just kind of go whoop down there. So, and then what I do is I can go ahead and tie these 2. You just got to be careful. Don't pull them super tight, because what happens is you'll pull all of your ends from the other end. So I just go ahead and tie it. And then what I can do is I can just take it and run my hand down to the end. Back you up again. Okay, I'll just run myself down to the end, and I will tie it again. And let's see. I'm going to sit you on the floor. Okay, that way you can get, I mean, this down here is really nothing spectacular. There's dog hair, my bad. So all I do is I run my ones down to the end, okay, and then I just tie them. And I do tie them out from the loom. My first knot is out from the loom, and then I just slip it over, okay. I kind of adjust my tension, I guess is what you call it. And then I will do a second knot, if I can. Hold on just a second. I had some knot issues. So just make sure that as you come down, you don't twist them. Okay, and then just tie it. And as you'll see, this fringe, well, I guess you can't see because it's off the camera, but back up a little bit. This fringe is shorter than this one. It's not something I'm worried about. Because I don't like my fringe to be super long anyway, so if it's a little short, it's fine with me. Just, it's because I tied it longer at the other end. Just happens one way or the other. So, that's that. And, what you do is you just basically continue all the way across. And I could sit here and show you me weaving all the way across, but what I think I'm going to do is stop the video here and weave some without, you guys getting sick with me moving you back and forth and me babbling on. So I'm going to go ahead and weave it probably to about halfway, or, to some point that's a little bit easier for you to see when it started to actually make a fabric. And then I will come back and show you that. And then I will probably have to have a different video altogether showing you my finishing, what I do to take it off the loom, and that kind of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and probably upload this and post it. And you guys, if you have any questions, just ask me, or if there's something you want to see when I come back to do another video with the loom, just ask me, because I'm not really sure exactly what you want to see. But just let me know, and I will try to get it in the video. Thank you guys for watching, and give me a thumbs up. Bye.